Ever just stop and wonder what's actually going on in your head while you're endlessly scrolling? It's a huge question, right? Well, today we're jumping right into that debate. We're talking about how social media is literally designed to grab our attention and what that might be doing to our brains. So, let's get into it.
Okay, this quote, it really hits hard, especially coming from someone who is on the inside at Google. What Tristan Harris is getting at is this. If an app is free, you have to ask yourself, what's the catch? And the catch is, you're the product. It's not about the app itself. The real business is selling your attention to advertisers. Your eyeballs, your time, that's the currency.
And yeah, there's a name for this whole system. It's called the attention economy. This is the bedrock, the fundamental idea that basically runs the entire internet as we know it. So let's unpack that a little.
You know, what's kind of wild is that this isn't some new 21st century concept. An economist named Herbert Simon saw this coming all the way back in 1971. Can you believe that? He basically said, hey, when information becomes infinite, the one thing that's going to be scarce is our attention. And when something is scarce, its value just skyrockets.
And if you want proof of how intense this competition is, look no further than this quote from the CEO of Netflix. He's not saying their competitor is another streaming service. He's saying it's sleep, a basic human need. I mean, that tells you everything, right? When the whole game is about keeping you glued to the screen, anything, even your own body's need for rest, is the enemy.
Okay, so what's the actual cost of all this? What's this constant fight for our attention doing to our brains? Well, researchers are seeing a few big things. First, that deep, sustained focus we need for hard tasks, it's getting swapped out for just constantly switching from one thing to another. Second, our memory. We're kind of offloading it, right? Why bother remembering something when you know Google has your back? And third, and this one's a biggie, the internet is becoming what's called a supernormal stimulus. It's so perfectly crafted to be engaging that sometimes real life just can't compete.
All right, this leads us straight into a huge and honestly pretty controversial argument in this whole debate. It comes from social psychologist Jonathan Haidt, and he calls it the anxious generation thesis.
So Haidt's whole argument is that we've seen this massive shift in what it means to be a kid. Think about it. We went from a childhood that was mostly play-based, outside, unsupervised, figuring things out with other kids, building resilience, to one that's now phone-based. And that's often indoors, alone, and in a virtual world where you're constantly comparing yourself to others.
And the results of this shift, well, according to Haidt, they're pretty staggering. Take a look at this number, 92%. So what is that? That's the jump in anxiety diagnoses for young adults since 2010. And the key thing he points to is the timing. The rise of the smartphone and this spike in anxiety, they happened at the exact same time.
And the data he uses to back this up is, well, it's pretty sobering. This chart, for example, looks at teenage girls in the UK. The takeaway? If they're on social media for more than 5 hours a day, their likelihood of being clinically depressed is almost 40%. That's a huge correlation, and it's really hard to just look away from that.
But is it really that simple? Is social media the one and only villain in this story? A lot of other researchers are saying, hold on a second. So let's look at the other side of the argument.
So is social media the only thing to blame here? That's the big question for a lot of folks in the academic world. They see the same data, they see the correlation, but they're worried that pointing the finger at just one thing is a huge oversimplification. And that could be dangerous because we might miss what's really going on.
Take Candace Odgers, a psychologist writing in the prestigious journal Nature. She's basically saying the science isn't there to draw a straight line from social media to this crisis. And her big fear is that if we just blame our phones, we stop looking for the other causes. We get distracted.
And she's not alone. Lucy Fowkes from the University of Oxford agrees. Her whole field of study is how complex being a teenager is, and her take is, yeah, social media is part of the equation, for sure, but blaming it for everything means we're ignoring the giant, messy, complicated picture of modern adolescence.
So you've got this huge debate over what's causing the problem. Naturally, there's an even bigger debate about how to fix it, which leads us to the million-dollar question: should we ban it?
Jonathan Haidt, coming from his point of view, has a pretty clear 4-point plan. He says we need to 1. Get kids back to unsupervised play. 2. No smartphones before they're 14. 3. No social media until they're 16. And 4. Make schools totally phone-free to force more real-world interaction.
Okay, so what do the kids themselves think when schools actually do ban phones?
It's complicated. On the plus side, they say it helps them focus and they actually talk to each other more. But there's a downside. They feel like they're not trusted, they lose access to some useful digital tools, and, this is a big one, some of them actually use their phones to help manage their own stress. It just goes to show, even a simple solution isn't really that simple.
And because of all that complexity, a lot of people are pushing for a completely different path. Instead of focusing on banning stuff, what if we focused on empowering students?
The big idea here is pretty straightforward. Instead of just taking the phone away, we actually teach kids how to use it well. The real goal is to build up their internal toolkit, skills like self-awareness and metacognition, which is basically thinking about how you think. The idea is to equip them to manage their own attention, even when the world is trying to snatch it away.
And look, this isn't just some fuzzy, feel-good idea. There are actual established frameworks for this, like the learner-centered principles from the APA. It's a holistic approach that looks at everything: how a student thinks, what drives them, how they interact socially, all to build the specific skills they're going to need to succeed.
So why is this so important? What's the end game? It's one word: adaptability. I mean, let's be real. We're living in the age of AI. The world is changing fast, and the ability to learn how to learn, to control your own focus, that's going to be the key differentiator. It's the ultimate survival skill for the future.
And that brings this whole thing right back to you. We've talked about the attention economy, we've looked at some pretty sobering data, and we've heard both sides of the debate. So the final question is a personal one. In this non-stop daily battle for your attention, who's winning?